So this all started because I forgot my charger. That's it, just a dumb charger. I'd left it at my friend Jake's place the night before after we'd watched that terrible action movie and eaten way too much takeout. I didn't even notice it was missing until my phone was at 6% and I was already running late for work the next morning. I texted him, but he didn't reply. Not unusual. He sleeps like the dead. I figured I'd just swing by his place before heading in and grab it. No big deal. Except when I got there and knocked, it wasn't Jake who opened the door. It was his brother. I'd seen Drew maybe twice before. Once at a party, where he was basically glued to some girl's side. And another time, shirtless on the balcony fixing something with a drill. Which, yes, left a very specific image burned into my memory. But this was different. This time, he was freshly showered, damp hair messy, a towel slung low around his waist, and absolutely nothing else. He looked surprised to see me, and maybe slightly amused. Hey, he said, blinking at me like I'd interrupted a nap. I stood there frozen. Hi, I, left my charger here last night. Jake said I could come by. Drew leaned against the doorframe, one arm bracing the top of the frame. The move unintentionally, flexing his already obnoxiously toned arm. He's not here. Oh, cool, I said, pretending that wasn't devastating information. Do you mind if I just grab it real quick? It's probably by the couch. He raised an eyebrow but didn't move. You're the friend who eats all the dumplings, right? I blinked. What? He smirked. Jake told me about you. The extra soy sauce guy. I winced. That's accurate. He stepped aside then, finally. Come in. Just don't judge the mess. I stepped into the apartment, which looked perfectly normal aside from a hoodie on the floor and an open bag of chips on the coffee table. Where'd Jake go? I asked, scanning the room. Work trip. Left at like 6 this morning. Of course. I spotted my charger on the edge of the couch and moved to grab it, feeling Drew's presence still behind me, still, towel-clad. You're welcome to stay and charge up if you need, he said, walking past me toward the kitchen. I was about to make coffee. I almost said no. I should have said no, but something in me said, why not? Sure, I said, sliding my phone into the charger and sinking onto the couch. He moved around the kitchen like he lived there, which, technically, he did. I watched as he opened cabinets, poured water, started grinding beans. Still wearing just the towel. Still completely casual. So, you always greet people half naked? I asked, trying to sound cool. He glanced over his shoulder and grinned. Only the ones Jake warns me about. That earned a laugh for me. He warned you about me? Said you were his low-key best friend. Quiet but funny. Addicted to dumplings. Always stays late and never helps clean. I rolled my eyes. That's slander. He said you were smart too, he added, then turned back to the counter. Like, quietly intimidating. That wasn't something I was used to hearing. I think he was just trying to make me sound more mysterious. Drew brought over 2 mugs, sat on the arm of the couch near me, still towel only, which was becoming less distracting and more like a problem, and handed me one. So what do you do when you're not draining our frozen food supply? He asked. I gave him a look. I'm a junior designer at a branding agency downtown. His eyebrows lifted. That's cool. Like logos and stuff? Yeah. Mostly startups, small business rebrands, that kind of thing. He nodded, taking a sip. That's sick. I always sucked at art. You seem more like the athletic type. That made him laugh, a soft, warm sound. I used to be. Football in college. Now I do landscaping. Oh. It's not as blue-collar as it sounds, he said, shrugging. I run a small company. Clients, schedules, invoices, the whole deal. I looked at him again. Really looked this time. The muscle made sense. The tan. The confidence. But there was something else I hadn't noticed before. The way he talked about his work. The way he sipped his coffee with these slow, easy movements, like he had all the time in the world. And then I realized something else. I liked being around him. You really gonna sit here the whole time in that towel? I asked, more teasing than annoyed. He raised an eyebrow. Is it bothering you? I opened my mouth, then closed it. He grinned. I'll take that as a no. Before I could respond, he stood and stretched, towel still holding on for dear life, and said, I'll throw on something if it's going to kill you, but only if you promise not to steal any more chargers. No promises, I said, maybe a little too quickly. And when he walked into his room, I realized something else. This might be a very interesting morning. By the time Drew came back out, he was in sweatpants and a faded gray t-shirt that clung to his chest like it'd been through 100 washes. His hair was still damp, but messier now in a way that somehow made him look even better. I was still on the couch, scrolling through emails on my phone and pretending to look productive. But really, I was just trying to act normal. Like I wasn't keenly aware of the fact that we'd gone from my friend's older brother to guy I'm suddenly having coffee with, alone in his apartment after seeing way too much of him in a towel. He dropped onto the couch beside me, not on the other side, not with space between us, but right next to me, shoulder nearly brushing mine. It wasn't crowded. He just chose to sit close. You work today? He asked, sipping from his mug. I nodded. Yeah, in like 20 minutes. I've been working remote lately, though, so it's mostly just Zoom and Figma. He made a face. Zoom? Sounds like hell. You get used to it, I said, glancing at him. You work today? He shook his head. Nah. Thursdays are usually my off days. I use to catch up on admin stuff. Or sleep in. Or hang out with my little brother's mysterious charger-stealing best friend. I chuckled. So this is the highlight of your week? Unexpected highlight, he said, and then took another sip. Not complaining, though. That landed a little harder than I expected. I looked at him, trying to figure out if he was just being friendly or if there was something else going on, but he didn't look away. His eyes were on me, clear, steady, like he was trying to read me too. It was quiet for a second, comfortable, but also not. There was a tension I couldn't quite name, but I felt it in my chest, in the way I suddenly didn't know what to do with my hands. Then he asked, You and Jake ever? I blinked. Ever what? He shrugged. Slept together? I laughed, caught off guard. God, no. He's like a brother. Drew nodded. Just checking. You're here a lot. And you're nosy, he grinned. Only when I'm curious. You don't strike me as the curious type. You'd be surprised. He leaned back against the couch, his knee now fully pressed against mine. Not an accident, not with the way he didn't move. You're not what I expected, he said after a beat. What does that mean? He gave a small shrug, watching me. Jake talks about you like you're this quiet little hermit. But you're, I don't know, funny. Sharp. I raised an eyebrow. You're saying I have depth? He laughed. Yeah, something like that. I looked down at my coffee, smiling despite myself. It was weird. I wasn't trying to flirt. I wasn't even thinking about Drew like that, at least not until today. But now that he was here, now that he was this close, I couldn't stop wondering what was going on behind those casually intense looks. You're staring, I said, not looking up. I know, he said simply. That made me glance at him again. He didn't look away, didn't try to pretend like he hadn't just said that. And just like that, the air between us felt charged again. I should probably go log in, I said quietly, breaking eye contact. You could stay, he said. Can't skip work. No, he said. I mean later. Tonight, if you're around. I hesitated. Jake's not home. He gave me a look. I know. I didn't answer right away, because I wasn't sure what he meant, but I was pretty sure I wanted to find out. I didn't end up getting much work done that day, not because I wasn't trying, but because my brain wouldn't shut up. I kept thinking about the way Drew looked at me, the way he sat just close enough for it to feel intentional, the way he asked if I'd ever slept together with Jake, like it mattered to him, like maybe he was trying to figure out if I was available. And then there was the part where he asked if I was coming back. He hadn't said it casually, either. He said it in that low, easy voice that made it sound like more than just a throwaway invite. I replayed it all during a design review call I barely paid attention to, while editing a banner ad that came out totally crooked, and again while staring blankly into my fridge around 6 p.m. No text from him all day. Not one. But at 7:14 p.m., just when I was about to call it a night and sink into my couch with leftovers, my phone buzzed. "Drew, you hungry?" I stared at it, then typed back. "Me? Kind of. Why?" "Drew, I made too much. Come help me fix that." A minute later, he sent a second message. "Drew, if you want." I was already grabbing my keys. The walk to his place took 10 minutes, just enough time for my nerves to catch up. What was I doing? This was Jake's brother. We'd barely exchanged more than 3 words before yesterday, and now I was going over to his place for dinner like we did this all the time? Except, maybe we could. He opened the door in sweats again. Shirtless this time, a towel around his neck like he'd just finished a workout or a shower. His hair was damp, chest glistening slightly, and I instantly regretted wearing the oldest hoodie I owned. "Hey," he said, smiling as he stepped back to let me in. "Glad you came." "Glad you cooked," I said, trying not to look at his chest. Failing. The apartment smelled amazing. Something garlicky and buttery, and I spotted a bowl of pasta on the counter, along with 2 plates and a bottle of wine. "You went all out," I said, setting my keys down. He shrugged. "Had the time. And it's nice to cook for someone." I watched as he filled 2 plates, handed me one, and motioned toward the couch. We ate cross-legged on the cushions, plates balanced on our knees. It felt casual, easy, like we'd done this 100 times. "You're a good cook," I said around a bite of pasta. "I know," he said, grinning. I laughed. "Modest, too." He leaned back slightly, wine glass in hand. "You always this quiet, or am I making you nervous?" I looked at him. He didn't look smug, just curious, like he genuinely wanted to know. "A little of both," I said, honest. He smiled, and something in his expression softened. "That's fair." We kept eating, talking. It was weird how easily the conversation flowed. He asked about my job, what I was working on, where I wanted to be in 5 years. No one ever asked me that, not seriously. But he did, and he listened like he actually cared about the answer. At some point, we'd finished eating and set the plates aside. The wine was mostly gone, and we were both leaning back, a little looser now, a little closer than we'd been when we started. "You ever think about what it would have been like if we met without Jake in the picture?" he asked suddenly. That caught me off guard. "What do you mean?" He turned his head, looked at me. If I met you at a party, or on a date, would you have said yes?" I blinked. "Are you asking if I'd have gone out with you?" He nodded. "Yeah." I didn't look away. "Probably. Yeah. Probably?" "Okay," I said, laughing. "Definitely," he grinned. "Good?" We sat there in silence for a moment. A comfortable kind, but not empty. And then he reached out, slowly, and touched my wrist. Just lightly, enough for my whole body to go still. "You seem tense," he said quietly. "I'm fine," I said, though my pulse was anything but. His fingers brushed along the inside of my arm. Not a grab. Not anything obvious. Just that slow, soft touch that made my breath catch. "Tell me to stop if this is weird," he said. "It's not." He shifted closer, and just like that, the space between us was gone. He moved closer, and this time I didn't flinch. Didn't look away. Drew's hand stayed light on my wrist, fingers brushing up the inside of my arm like he was figuring out what I'd let him do. What this could be. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't cocky. It was careful. That kind of careful you don't give to just anyone. I turned toward him, slowly. We were so close now that I could see the faint freckles on his nose, the way his jaw flexed when he swallowed. His eyes met mine, steady, not asking permission, because he already had it. And then he kissed me. It started slow, His lips touched mine like he was testing the shape of it, seeing if we still had room to back out. But when I didn't pull away, when I kissed him back, he leaned in deeper. My hands were on his shoulders before I even realized it. His skin was warm, his body solid under my palms. I felt him shift closer until our thighs were touching, our knees pressed together. The air was thick between us. Wine, garlic, something else entirely. The kiss turned hungrier, still slow, but less hesitant. His hand slid from my arm to my waist, fingers spreading against the fabric of my hoodie, like he wanted to pull me closer but wasn't sure if he should. I answered for him. I moved into him, pushing until he was leaning back against the armrest and I was half over him. Our mouths didn't separate. His free hand came up to the back of my neck, firm, grounding. "You okay?" he asked against my lips, his voice rougher now. "Yeah," I breathed. "You sure?" Instead of answering, I kissed him again. Harder. That made him smile into my mouth. A small, breathy sound. Like he'd been waiting for that. We didn't rush. We didn't tear clothes off. It wasn't that kind of urgency. It was quieter, more charged. He kissed my neck, slow and deliberate, and I let my head fall back. My hands found the hem of his shirt, well, technically mine now, since he'd finally put one on, and slid under it. His skin was warm, firm, muscles flexing under my touch. He let out a soft breath when I moved my fingers up his back. "This okay?" I asked, echoing his question. He nodded, eyes darker now. "More than okay." For a while, it was just that. Touch. Heat. Us. Pressed together on the couch like we didn't need the rest of the world. Eventually, the kissing slowed. His head rested against mine, our foreheads touching, both of us breathing a little harder. "I wasn't planning on this," he said quietly. "Me neither." He smiled. "But I'm not mad about it. Good." We stayed like that, tangled up on the couch, barely talking. His hand drifted up and down my back, slow, steady. Every once in a while, he'd lean in and kiss me again. Not urgent. Just because he could. At some point, I realized I'd been there for hours, that it was getting late, that I should probably leave. But when I moved to get up, he stopped me. "You can stay," he said. "Jake might freak out if he finds out." Drew shrugged. "Jake's not here." I looked at him. He looked at me. And I stayed. I didn't expect to fall asleep. Honestly, I thought I'd just stay for another hour or so. Maybe we'd make out a little more. Maybe I'd walk home in the cool air, buzzing with whatever the hell just happened between us. But I must have drifted off, because the next thing I knew, I was waking up in a bed that wasn't mine. The sheets were soft, the mattress firm, the pillow smelled like him. Something warm like cedar and detergent. For a moment, I was disoriented, blinking against the morning light leaking in through a cracked curtain. Then I felt it, a hand on my waist, a warm chest pressed against my back. Drew. He was still asleep, breathing slow and even. His arm was draped over me, not possessive, just there, like it belonged, like we'd done this 100 times. I stayed still, not wanting to move, not wanting to break the illusion. Except, it wasn't an illusion. This was real. His body against mine, his hand twitching slightly in sleep, his breath on the back of my neck. I felt calm, which was weird considering I'd woken up in Jake's brother's bed with no idea what the hell we were now. I shifted slightly, just enough to glance back at him. His eyes opened almost immediately, still heavy with sleep. "Hey," he murmured, voice rough. "Morning," I said, my voice quieter than I intended. His hand flexed on my waist like he wasn't quite ready to let go. "You stayed," he said like he was still processing it. "You told me to." He smiled, eyes still half closed. "I was hoping you would." Neither of us moved. I could feel his thumb brushing slow circles against my hip, right where my shirt had ridden up. It was such a small thing, gentle. But it made my heart do this annoying, fluttery thing I wasn't prepared for. "I don't usually," I started, then trailed off. He waited. "Stay," I finished. "Overnight." His hand paused, then kept moving. Me neither. We laid there like that for a while, not saying much, not needing to. Eventually, he sat up, running a hand through his hair. The sheet slipped down his back, revealing the slope of his shoulder blades, the curve of his spine. I tried not to stare, failed. He glanced back at me. "You want coffee?" "Yeah," I said, voice still rough from sleep. "Please." He stood, stretched, and padded out of the room in just his boxers, like it was the most normal thing in the world. And maybe, somehow, it was. I pulled the covers up around me and stared at the ceiling. What the hell was happening? We'd crossed a line, clearly, but there wasn't any guilt, no panic, just this strange sense of something beginning. And I wasn't sure what to do with that. When he came back with 2 mugs, I was sitting up, hair a mess, trying to remember how to be a person. He handed me the coffee and sat beside me on the bed. "Thanks," I said, taking a sip. He looked at me, quiet for a second. Then, "You good?" I nodded. "Just trying to process." "Same." He leaned back against the headboard, mug in one hand, his thigh pressed lightly against mine. "I'm not trying to freak you out," he said carefully. "You're not," I said. He gave me a look. "Okay, maybe a little," I added, smiling weakly. But not in a bad way. We sat like that, sipping quietly. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't want to be anywhere else. After coffee, we didn't jump into anything. We didn't get handsy again, or pick up where the kissing left off, or even talk about what had happened the night before in the way people usually do when they're trying to figure out what the hell they're doing. Instead, we got dressed. He tossed me a hoodie from the pile on a chair in the corner. It wasn't mine, but it smelled like his detergent, and I didn't give it back. He didn't ask me to. We moved around each other in the kitchen like we'd done this before. Quiet, a little awkward, but not uncomfortable. I washed the mugs while he scrambled some eggs. We didn't fill the air with small talk. There wasn't pressure to. It was easy. Too easy, maybe. "So," he said finally, setting a plate down in front of me. "You gonna tell Jake?" I blanked. "About what?" He smirked. "That you stayed over. That we—" He didn't finish that sentence, and I wasn't sure if it was because he didn't want to or didn't know how to. I sighed. "I don't know. Think he'll be mad? Maybe. Maybe not. Jake's not the problem." He looked at me across the counter. "Then what is?" I stared at my eggs like they might answer for me. "It's not a problem," I said finally. "It's just fast." "Yeah," he said quietly. "It is." We ate in silence for a minute. Then he said, "But it doesn't feel wrong." And that landed somewhere deep in my chest. Because he was right. None of it felt wrong. It felt sudden. Intense, but not wrong. I nodded slowly. "No, it doesn't." He relaxed a little after that, like he needed to hear me say it too. We finished eating, and he started rinsing the plates without asking, like I was going to stay. Like this wasn't a one-time thing. I didn't know what to make of that. So I said, "What now?" He didn't look up right away, just kept rinsing. "I don't know," he admitted. "I've never done this part." "What part?" He glanced at me. "The waking up together part. The are we a thing part." I leaned against the counter. "We don't have to figure that out today." His shoulders relaxed slightly. "Good, because I kind of just want to hang out with you without overthinking it." I smiled. "Then let's do that." And we did. We hung out, watched something dumb on TV, made jokes, shared a blanket even though it wasn't cold. At one point, I fell asleep on his shoulder for maybe 15 minutes and woke up to him scrolling on his phone with one hand and gently playing with my hair with the other. He didn't even notice I was awake at first. But when he did, he didn't stop. He just said, "You drooled a little." I groaned and tried to pull away, but he held me there, laughing softly. "Relax," he said. "It's cute." And that was the moment I knew I was completely screwed. Because I liked him. Not just the shirtless version, not just the quiet, intense eye contact and slow kisses. I liked him. The guy who made eggs and played with my hair like it was nothing. The guy who didn't fill silences with noise. The guy who gave me space to feel everything without demanding anything in return. That night, I went home. Not because I wanted to leave, but because I needed a second to breathe, to think. To figure out if this was real, or if we were just two guys caught up in a sudden connection that maybe wasn't meant to last. He walked me to the door, still barefoot, still looking at me like he wasn't quite ready to let me go. "You gonna text me?" he asked. "I was planning on it." He nodded. "Good." I hesitated. "You okay?" He didn't answer right away. Then he said, "I just don't want this to be a fluke. It's not. You sure?" I reached for his hand, squeezed it. "Yeah, I'm sure." He nodded again, then leaned in and kissed me. Slow, just once. And I walked home with that kiss still on my lips. The next few days felt like a weird blur. We texted casual stuff mostly. Memes, little check-ins of "what are you doing tonight?" that ended with us falling asleep on opposite sides of the same bed again, legs tangled anyway. But we hadn't actually talked about what we were doing, what this was. And it was starting to get to me. I was used to flings that burned fast and bright, then disappeared. I was used to ambiguity. I was not used to the way Drew looked at me when he thought I wasn't paying attention, or how he'd start making 2 mugs of coffee even before I showed up. He was acting like we were already something, and I didn't know what to call it. It came to a head the 3rd night I stayed over. We were sitting on the couch again, because apparently that was our thing now. My legs across his lap, both of us half watching some crime doc, half scrolling on our phones. He set his down first. Then he looked at me and said, "So are we going to talk about this?" My stomach did a little flip. "About what?" He gave me a look. "Come on." I shifted, sat up a little straighter, even though I already knew where this was going. "Okay. Yeah. Let's talk." He nodded, slow. "I like you, obviously. I didn't expect to. Didn't see it coming. But I do." I didn't say anything yet. I wanted to let him finish. "I've had a lot of short things," he continued. "Casual stuff, nothing serious. But this doesn't feel casual. Not to me." He paused. "You?" I exhaled. "Yeah, same." He looked relieved, but also cautious. "Then what are we doing?" I ran a hand through my hair. "Figuring it out. Slowly." "Together?" His expression softened. "I can live with that." There was a long beat. Not awkward, just quiet. Then he said, "You okay if we don't label it yet?" "Yeah," I said. "Labels aren't the thing I'm worried about." He tilted his head. "Then what are you worried about?" "Jake," I admitted. "What he'll think, what this could do." Drew leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "You think I haven't thought about that?" "I know you have," I said. I don't want this to blow up." "Neither do I." We were quiet again. Then he looked at me and said, "Do you want me to talk to him?" I hesitated. "Eventually." He nodded. "I will. When it's the right time." I looked at him, this guy who I'd barely known a week ago. This guy who now knew how I liked my coffee, and that I always forgot to plug in my phone before bed, and that I hummed when I read emails. He wasn't just a hookup. He was starting to feel like home. "You're not what I expected," I said quietly. "Same," he said, smiling, "but I'm glad anyway." We didn't have all the answers. Still don't. But that night, I fell asleep with his arm around me, his breath on my neck, and something in my chest I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Real, quiet, grounded hope. Whatever this was, we were in it now, together,